Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit of the WoW podcast, Blue Please on CynicalBrit.com. Welcome to a Wipe-a-thon 3000 presentation for Baron Ashbury, the first boss of Shadowfang Keep Heroic. He is not easy at all. Now, with Wipe-a-thon 3000 presentations, we show the first attempt at normal speed, then we speed the rest up to 200%. This is a progression of wipes going all the way through, and I will leave the successful attempt out. That will feature in the forthcoming full run, which will be out at some point. I'm not going to give an ETA because there's a lot of work to do on it. This guy is probably the hardest boss in the dungeon. There is another one, the third boss, who is fairly difficult as well. The rest of them vary from reasonably hard to fairly trivial. This guy has a bunch of very interesting mechanics that are going to screw over a pug group. I can see that happening. The first of them is an attack called Pain and Suffering, which is a channeled damage over time shadow effect. He also stacks this nasty debuff on you that will hit you for 9,000 and will then give you a shadow damage debuff that means you take more shadow damage. Now, his main mechanic is that asphyxiate right there. He will then follow that up with something called Stay of Execution. Now, this is for him to enjoy killing you more. He heals everybody, but he also heals himself, and it's a percentage-based as well, so it's not good. You get healed for 10%, but he also gets healed for 10%. So he's going to drain you down all the way to bare minimum life with the asphyxiate and then heal you back up again. Now, the thing that you've got to worry about in this fight is managing the interrupts when it comes to dealing with Stay of Execution. When you eat the asphyxiate, you're going to have to take one of those heals, but you don't want to let him heal too much, because if he does, he's going to heal a ludicrous amount, and as you can see right now, they have massively buffed the health of heroic bosses. They've pretty much doubled it across the board. This is something that a lot of people, including myself, gave feedback on, said the bosses did not have enough HP, so now most of the heroic bosses are around 4.2 million, so you've got to be much more focused, of course, for around twice the time. Now, we did get absolutely slaughtered there. It was mostly due to healing problems and the stacking shadow damage debuff that you've got to worry about. It is not an easy fight at all. It's going to strain your healer an awful lot. As you can see, we're using a light well here, and this is a fight where the light well is extremely useful. You'll also notice that I'm walking near the light well to use it. As I was told, after this you don't have to. The range on the clicking of a light well now is quite significant, and you shouldn't have to worry too much about that at all. Now, we're doing all right here, honestly, but I'm out of mana already with fire, and Gimby, the rogue, is dead, so we've lost a lot of our interrupting capabilities as well. You should be interrupting almost everything here, but as you can see, I just let a Stay of Execution go on for way too long. He healed a bunch. You can interrupt Pain and Suffering, so I would recommend that you do whenever possible. And aside from that, well, that's phase 1 of the fight. There is phase 2 that you have to worry about, but I will show you that in, well, just a moment. But yeah, we're getting nowhere here, as you can see. He's healing himself way too much. And one thing I will point out, and this should be considered a warning as well as a piece of feedback. At the moment, we're pinging around 500 to the beta server, which is unusually high. Now, what this is doing is it's causing us a lot of problems with timing our interrupts, because when we land the interrupt, it is often a little bit late. The way that we worked it out is we don't want to let him tick any more than 2 on that Stay of Execution. If you do let it go on any more than that, you're just not going to get him down. It's not going to happen. It'll take you way too long. And bear in mind, those stacking debuffs are going to get very unpleasant later on. You can clear them with Ice Block, and I would definitely recommend that you do so. Yeah. There's nothing we can do here. Mage is out of mana. We're just boned, and we know it. So we're just going to wipe this, and we're going to try it again. Right, we're going to give that another batch. So the main thing that we took from this first attempt is that interrupts and the timing of said interrupts are of paramount importance. A rotation is quite useful. You don't want, say, your mage just throwing their 30-second or so cooldowns at him to interrupt Pain and Suffering, and then realizing they can't interrupt Stay of Execution. A rogue is ideal here, needless to say, but any other class with a reliable interrupt will help. It's always good to have 2 interrupters on that basis, because if the rogue gets killed, or if the rogue ends up missing or whatever, then you are in big trouble. So we've got the rogue on the Pain and Suffering, and I'm going to be dealing with the Stay of Execution, and we're going to see just how that works. We'll get ready to go. And here we are. Okay, so Lightwell in the middle there, very nice indeed. So interrupts the pain and suffering, so we're not taking too much damage from that. You saw that AoE sort of Chaos Bolt thing that did about 10,000 damage there, and that will also stack that debuff on you, although it does seem to disappear after the Asphyxiate. So we're DPSing him down quite well here. I did get an interrupt off there, which was... It was a little bit risky. It was after 1 tick, I believe, so I got about 8,000 health back. You can do it after 1 tick, and actually we figured out that 1 tick is a good way to do it, especially if you've got a light well and your healer is confident they can deal with it. So how many ticks did I go for this time? Okay, so I actually allowed 2 to go on there, and that was mostly due to latency. I tried to time it so that it landed on the first one, and as you will see in future attempts, I actually jumped the gun a little bit, and I end up interrupting the whole Stay of Execution, which means that we end on about 500 health each. That will not kill you, and actually there is an achievement for interrupting Stay of Execution before it casts every single time. So it can be done, but you're going to need an extremely competent healer, and it's probably going to vary depending on class. You're going to have to be really quick on the light wells and things like that. Now, we're doing okay here, but we're still running very, very low on health, and our healer is getting absolutely pounded in terms of mana. Now, here's the trick that we didn't see the last time, because he got down to a certain percentage of HP. It's called Mend Rotten Flesh. Mend Rotten Flesh is a single target heal on himself, and it is for a huge amount. We didn't interrupt it because we didn't know it was coming, and as a result, he's gained an awful lot of health back, and a lot of us are really running low on mana now. I'm completely out. Our other mage is very, very low. Our healer is very, very low as well, so that's extremely problematic. Spamming Scorch just to get some mana back right here. At least we can use the light well to keep the heals up, but we are getting worn down, and worn down again. Again, he managed to get 2 heals off there and another Mend Rotten Flesh, which has actually pushed him now above 3 million HP once again. And there is not a lot we can do here. It's very obvious that we're in an awful lot of trouble. So we're going to wipe fairly soon. But yeah, that Rotten Flesh, as far as I can tell, comes at around 25%, and he'll also do one at 50, and he might even do one at 75. But you've just got to be so quick, because you don't have a lot of time to interrupt that at all. You've got to be ready for it. There you go, you saw another one right there. It's a very effective heal, and it will screw you over. You'll just get ground down, especially if you're a heavy mana-using group. The healer's going to get ground down one way or the other. You've just got to bear that in mind. You've just got to make sure that you kill him before your healer goes completely and the healer's got to be very careful in terms of mana management. Now, I did lose half of this attempt right here, but I'm putting it in because we did get fairly far here. It wasn't too bad. Now, what you might notice is I've changed over to Frost. The reason for that is the Frost Mortal Strike effect. So I've managed to reduce the amount of healing he's got by switching over to Frost spec. So he's not healing up so much, and we're doing fairly well here. There's the pain and suffering interrupted quite nicely there by the rogue. Mend Rotten Flesh, as you saw there, at 50%, and we did manage to interrupt it right there, but we are in so much trouble right here. Okay, so he keeps pushing, and we are once again low on mana. This is not an easy fight at all. We've already burned Time Warp, and as you can see, we've got huge stacks of that shadow damage debuff, which is straining the healer. Mend Rotten Flesh interrupted successfully right here, and look what happens when he hits this that we didn't know about. Oh god! Phase 2, out of freaking nowhere. Huge amounts of Shadow AoE, absolutely wrecking the entire group. We're panicking and screaming on Vet, WTF just happened. Dead. By popping all cooldowns, we did manage to get him to 100k, but as you can tell, we just don't have the damage. So, there's a few things that you can do to manage this. It's going to come at 25%, so you can prepare for it. And you're also going to see the importance of timing, because we mistime one of these transitions, and we totally screw it up. There are a few other things you need to concern yourself with as well. The stacking debuff that you saw coming in from those waves of Chaos Bolts, the Shadow debuff, hurts you an awful lot. If you can get rid of them, it'll do about 5,000 damage per pulse in the last phase. If you can't get rid of them, look at about 7 to 8k, which is going to really strain your healer, and most likely you will die an awful lot faster. I don't really know, honestly, what causes it to disappear, because we've seen it disappear a couple of times on Asphyxiate, and sometimes it doesn't disappear. I don't know what that is, but just assume that you are going to have this debuff. You can't seem to clear it unless you use stuff like Divine Shield, unless you use stuff like Ice Block. So if you do have mages or paladins in the group, I would strongly recommend you use them. You can't remove it, it's not a magical effect, so I don't know if there is just something that can get rid of it, but I can't see anything reliable within the actual fight mechanics. Okay. So we're doing pretty well here, and my Frost DPS is fairly competitive, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Mend Rotten Flesh successfully interrupted, but I've got 4 stacks of that now, which is not helping. The weird thing is that other people don't. I don't know why. I can't figure that out, and there's so little documentation on this because so few people have actually done it that I don't really understand the mechanic there. All we know is that we've got to deal with it. Okay, so we're getting to transition phase right here. He's choked, he's almost getting there, and he's going to pop his Archangel form very, very fast indeed. I was able to clear the debuffs there using my Ice Block, and we're using a Power Word Barrier right here to absorb a lot of the damage that's coming in, but it's still a huge amount of damage. The healer just can't deal with it. She gets absolutely wrecked. So very close. So very, very close. But we get taken out anyway. Oh, tough stuff, ladies and gentlemen. What I would recommend for that last phase is you just save all your cooldowns for that. Make sure that your transition works well, because if you get it at the wrong time and you're not prepared for it, you can be in a massive amount of trouble, as you are about to see, because we're about to screw this up right here, and we're interrupting on around 1 or 2 pulses of Stay of Execution, so it seems to work fairly well here. It's giving the healer enough time and enough mana to keep on top of things, but it's not healing him too much, and of course, thanks to the Mortal Strike debuff of the Frost spec, he's not healing as much either. Asphyxiate there once again. It's odd, isn't it? It clears from some of the group, but not from others. I cannot for the life of me figure out why that is. Maybe when that becomes more clear, this fight will become a little easier, although I honestly doubt it. It just requires an awful lot of precision from the interrupting DPS, as well as a lot of timing. So we've got the Mend Rotten Flesh there, no problem at all. There's the Asphyxiate once again. It clears from 2 people, but not from me. You see, it always seems to clear from Amaranth and Lemon and Lime, and yet it doesn't clear from me. I wonder why that is. I wonder maybe if it's damage related. Maybe you've got to let him do loads of damage to you and take you down to bare minimum health, and maybe that will clear it. Because I'm using my Ice Barrier, that might be stopping it. Now this is the problem with the timing. You see the dots ticking away right there? We eat the Asphyxiate and suddenly Dark Angel form dead in a nanosecond. Unbelievable. You have to be so very careful with that, unbelievably cautious in order to actually get that right. Now, the next attempt after this, we did manage to kill him, but hopefully I've given you an overview of this particular boss. I'd just like to give a quick conclusion on it, because this is such a well-designed encounter. It's really fun. It's got a lot of unique stuff. It's nice to be forced in a heroic to have to be very precise with your interrupts. Though, again, what I will say to Blizzard is that to those playing on very laggy connections, and maybe in countries like Australia, they might be having an awful lot of problems with this, more so than would be reasonable. Now, I don't know how to fix that, really, without actually nerfing the encounter. Maybe there's just something they can do in order to make the interrupt tolerance better, so that... I don't know if it's client-side hit detection. I have to assume it's server-side hit detection in terms of interrupts and things like that, but I can't be 100% certain on that. Whatever the case, because of the latency we had, initially we had quite a few problems timing it, and even towards the end when we were really getting good at it, we were still screwing it up quite a bit, but the Mortal Strike debuff was helping to mitigate that somewhat. It might be something they need to look into. Regardless, that fight is really, really fun, and I look forward to showing you the successful attempt in the full Shadowfang Keep heroic run, which will be coming at some point fairly soon. My name's been TotalBiscuit. This has been a Wipe-a-thon 3000 presentation, and I shall see you next time.